More and more families are choosing Catholic schools for their kids' education in the Diocese of Brooklyn and beyond. It all started during the pandemic, and new numbers released by the National Catholic Educational Association show enrollment has been on an uptick ever since. Here to break it all down is NCEA President Lincoln Snyder. Hi, Lincoln.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. So, Lincoln, explain to us how enrollment in Catholic schools in the U.S. has changed since the start of the pandemic.
Well, it's been a pretty dynamic environment for us. In those first months following the beginning of the pandemic, we did see a lot of movement, and we had a dip in enrollment. But over the last 2 years, Catholic school enrollment has grown significantly. We've seen the greatest growth of the last 2 decades in our Catholic schools.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that data that you were talking about. So 3.8% gain in students in the 2021-2022 school year. The numbers went up again this year too, as you mentioned, but only slightly less. So what do you think contributed to the increase, and will it last?
We believe it is going to last. To answer the second question first, we saw a big gain in the number of students coming into our younger classes, so kindergarten, first grade. We saw a lot of families opt into Catholic education during the pandemic because our schools nationally were generally the first ones to come back and be open and present for kids. So we saw a big bump in enrollment with new families coming in because we were open. But the really exciting news is our retention rates everywhere are well over 90%. Some dioceses, it's as high as 98%. The number one reason they gave for staying was they fell in love with the schools and with the communities. And so we're confident we're going to retain these students for a very long time.
That's great to hear. And while many Catholic schools in the Northeast saw a drop in enrollment, the Diocese of Brooklyn schools actually saw the opposite. Let's take a look at some of their numbers. More than a third saw an increase over pre-pandemic levels, and they're growing by an average of 20%. You know, Currents News and the Tablet covered more than 180 school stories during 2020 and 2021. Do you think Catholic schools need to do a better job at getting the word out?
I believe they do, and I believe that Brooklyn is a great example of doing that well. You know, I'm very impressed by the work that your team in the diocese is doing to do great storytelling around Catholic schools. I feel like our schools were a really well-kept secret, perhaps too well-kept a secret in a lot of places for too long. And in places like Brooklyn, where we see an investment in marketing and storytelling, it helps us attract and retain new families to our Catholic schools.
And I know a lot of the families currently in Catholic schools aren't Catholic, or maybe they're not practicing Catholic. So what kind of impact could the schools have on evangelization?
We believe we actually could be the church's best instrument for evangelization in the coming years. 22% of our families in Catholic schools now aren't Catholic. And for a lot of our Catholic families, perhaps they've become a little bit disconnected from the church over the past years. And so we're hearing stories of things like convalidations of marriages, or people joining RCIA, or kids getting baptized. And so that enthusiasm that families feel for our schools, we believe can turn into a real advantage for the church itself in evangelizing families and bringing them closer into our beautiful Catholic communities.
So true. We had hundreds of new Catholics join the Catholic Church in Brooklyn just this year. So Lincoln Snyder, president of the National Catholic Educational Association, thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
Hi, I'm Christine Persichetti, anchor of Currents News. If you like what you saw, please hit the like button on this video. And if you want to see more content just like it, subscribe and click on the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, because we are putting your faith in the news.